Welcome back to some more Dwarf Fortress. Picking up from where we left off in the previous episode, I'm just going to go around and check on a couple of things. The military squads are doing their thing. Oh, something I should mention is that you do not want to keep your military squad stationed for too long. Otherwise they will start to have issues, both needing food, drink, and sleep, and also they will begin to get bad thoughts from just being on duty for so long. Usually a month is about as long as you want to have your greener squads. More experienced squads are fine up to about 2 months, and realistically, once you get your legendary and higher military dwarves, they're going to be either sparring or practicing or basically working out all the time, unless they're sleeping or drinking or getting something to eat. So we have Flask with her high boots, more flasks, and here we have a mandate. Here we go. Perfect example of why this dwarf is so well loved, making flasks. So that needs to be taken care of real quick. The mayor, export of anvils of all things. I'm never going to export those things, they're too heavy. So, let's go ahead and remove the stations. So, S for squads, select the squad letter, and then O to cancel the order. E, same thing. F, same thing. So, they've been relieved of their... they've been relieved of their military duties for the time being. However, these copper helms are a little concerning, as well as the flasks and whatnot that have been dropped. So let's go to the military and equipment. Clothing, overclothing, partial match. Schedule, it might be something in the scheduling. Oh. Okay, train, minimum. Inactive, uniformed. I'm not entirely sure where they're dropping their equipment. So that will hopefully resolve itself, but seeing as how they are mostly a training squad, it's not entirely critical that they keep their equipment on them. Okay, I'm just checking the stockpiles, and here we have a large number of discarded clothing items. I'm just going to reclaim that real quick. DB, C, drag a box, and you're done. So there should be a swarm of dwarves heading over to pick up those and store them in a bin. Let's see. The workshops and mill plants. Alright, it's looking as though I need a couple more millstones up and running, as well as probably a couple more dwarves to handle the milling. So back over to Dwarf Therapist. Plant processing. Not entirely sure why these guys have it. Milling, here we go. Let's give them Master Maceman. So he's probably not going to be all that keen on doing some milling. In fact, once they get up to a certain skill, you can no longer assign them more civilian-based tasks. So, oops, milling. This guy is armorer, so he's too important to have. Working that. And these guys are more or less just green at it. Actually, he's a farmer. Milling. Okay, so 3 more millers added to the list. Oops. So go to the build menu, workshops, and oops, we don't actually have one of those built yet. So going over to the Mason's workshop, add an order for 1, 2, 3 kerns, and I keep escaping one too many times. Let's see, get that resumed. We have combat, and it looks like just hunting and sparring, so nothing to worry about. Let's go down to the cave entrance, Shift F1, and it looks like these are installed. And those are wired. So because it's been a few days, let's check the notes. So that is the building destroyer trap gate. Let's go ahead and order that to be pulled. And if we check up in the dining room, we have notes, notes. That is the cave door. Let's go ahead and have add task pull. So that will pull some levers and make sure that everything's set before we actually breach the caves. Okay. So just for safety, let's add a link to a B for bridge, going from the bottom up. That bridge with that mechanism and that mechanism. Then back to the kitchen / dining room area to pull that lever again. And to take care of the mandate, let's go ahead and do a units manager new order tin flask. Let's make 3, and that should be taken care of relatively quickly. Something to keep in mind, you don't have to immediately address a mandate, but you don't want to wait too long. The first color is going to be the brownish, indicating that there's a an order for something to be made. White mandates indicate a export prohibition. So after the brown, then it's going to be yellow, meaning that you've got, I believe it's about 3 months left on the mandate. And then once it turns red, you have less than a month. So you really need to get on it by then. Also, do keep in mind that some of the items do take quite a while to make. So you might not be, it might be advisable to start on it early. Definitely by the yellow time. So let's check on the injured dwarf over here. So the winded just means that they are having trouble breathing. Left lung. So here we go. The left leg, and this is one of the risks of getting injured, is just the sheer amount of attention that they need. Even if this has been sutured, it has probably either not been cleaned or it wasn't cleaned fast enough and it's become infected. So it is actually possible to die from the infection. It's not all that common, however. Let's see, receive cleaning and soap. It's probably a little unlikely that they will, that this dwarf will end up dying from the infection, but it is a possibility. Okay. Now, if I can actually remember what I was doing. Right, I was making some of those. They just haven't been finished yet. And let's go ahead and see about moving some of these. Give to this stockpile over here. And it looks like that's being handled. Oh, just as a slight addendum to the previous video while I wait for something to happen now, if we get down to the furnace workshop, plaster for casts is made from gypsum here. It's a yellow stone with the current texture, or current tile set, and it's made in a kiln. So add task, make plaster powder. You're going to need a bag or, yes, a bag to hold the powder, and that's returned once the powder's been used. So I do have a pair of magma kilns for whatever. So let's do some glass, make raw green glass. This is just little lumps of green glass. And repeat. Keep some of the dwarves busy. Oops, cancel that. Raw green glass. Q. Cancel. A. New task. Green glass. That. Repeat. So this is mostly just busy work, but it does add some value that you can trade away for more useful items. Keep in mind that sand and clay are both infinitely renewable. All you need is a single tile. designate that for either sand or clay collection. If we go to the farm area here, I have this as a zone for sand, and you really only need one tile for more wacky dwarven physics. But a dwarf will come along, scoop up some sand in a bag, and take that down to the workshop. If we check the stocks, there should be a powder dimple dye. It would appear that we have a very large amount of dimple dye, though only 11 sand. So let's go back to the workshops up here. And I think this is a case of improperly managed stockpiles. It's not a huge deal, but oh, here we go. The barrel is holding bags, and inside the bags are uses or quantities of dye. So it's probably not unreasonable that the this one stockpile is holding the entire fort's dye. But let's go ahead and make another dye workshop. So build workshop, and it is under D for Dyer's Workshop. So you're going to need a wooden barrel. Let's just go ahead and grab one of the ones that fell off a wagon sometime, and a bucket. And that will get built, hopefully quickly, and we can get to work dyeing some more of this thread. I did check, and there is no difference between dyeing the thread, then weaving it into cloth, or dyeing the cloth after it's been weaved. It is functionally equivalent, both in work and in product. So hopefully this will get rid of some of the cloth backlog that we've got. There is a slight difference in value of dye. The dimple cup dye, which is blue, is probably both the easiest as well as most valuable to get. There's also green, which is an outside crop, red, which is less valuable and an outside crop, and a gray or black color, which only occurs in either goblin caravans, if you're not at war with them, which is very, very unlikely, or if you've embarked in an evil biome, which I'm not even going to get into yet. So those are relatively rare to see, however they can happen. So in my fortress of 180 something, only 20 to 20, or rather 20 to 30 idlers is probably pretty good. And what I should do is over here set a hotkey for this, so capital H for hotkeys. Let's do F7, zoom, and to name it farms. Okay, this way I can stop losing my farms. And FPS is probably around 30 again. So let's do a quick animal culling. So bring up the stocks menu, go to enter for animals, and actually let's do this. Let's do bull, let's do this by species first. So, realistically, there's no need to have more than one male animal on the map at a time. However, I like to have basically a male and a spare in case something happens, old age or whatnot. There is an age that is present in the animals, however there's no current in-game way of viewing that. The utilities can that automatically designate creatures for butchering will actually be able to access that value and will butcher from oldest to youngest. So I just go from top down. So leave 2, yak, if I can type tonight. Alright, we do not need this many reindeer. Male reindeer. The one exception to the one male per fort or one male limit is cats. Unlike every other animal, cats adopt dwarves. Dwarves do not adopt cats. So, if we go to the cats, the other problem is that because you cannot designate an animal or a cat for adoption, something like this will end up happening, where you have quite a few cats that have adopted dwarves. In fact, some of them have multiple cats can adopt the same dwarf. So the Wagmaker here, who has 3, 4 cats, is going to be very, very upset if anything happens to his pets or his cats. Cats get very, very strange. So anyway, for cats, you only want to have a grown female and an adolescent female cat to try to limit your cat population as much as possible. The other thing is you cannot butcher a dwarf's pets, which is a good thing. However, when it comes to cats, if you don't keep the population down, you end up getting cats that just start to exponentially multiply, which will unfortunately cause an exponential decrease in your frame rate. So it looks like the cats have been properly sorted. And I am going to just go ahead and leave those. So we don't need that. So the animals are going to leave behind bones, skulls, meat, fat, and I believe they also leave behind hair, as well as a couple of just unusable items. The dogs I have all trained into war dogs, so let's make sure that that is up. The war dog list is current. And it appears to be 3 war dogs. So when it comes to war dogs, I actually just let the population grow as much as it wants to. What'll end up happening is, if we go to the front of the fortress, I have war dogs covering the front, both front entrances. It's going to be impossible for anything to sneak by. and if an ambush or a creature or whatever manages to make it in past the traps and the security and whatnot, they're going to get jumped on by anywhere from 10 to 15 dogs, all of which have military training, and while they're nowhere near as effective as, say, a dwarf, especially like a legendary axe dwarf in full armor, they're going to quickly make any work of any of the smaller invaders. They might have a little bit of trouble with the troll, but once you get 10 to 15 dogs in there, they're going to tear the troll to shreds. Unfortunately, what that means is that you will end up losing a couple dogs, so more is always better when it comes to the dog population. I also do like to have a couple of dogs assigned as pets. Firstly, that gets them out of the military role, and it puts them a lot deeper in the fortress, probably somewhere either bedrooms or more than likely, if not a bedroom or with their owner, then sitting around in the dining room. So animals, and there was a couple more that I wanted to check. Rooster, we only have one of. Goats. 2 male goats. Dogs, rabbits, cats, horses. Realistically, horses aren't all that useful. You will always get a pair of draft animals, either horses or yaks or something along those lines, that will pull in the initial wagon. If you're very, very lucky, they will be a breeding pair. If not, then they can serve as an emergency food source. Ironically, once the fortress has grown to this point, you're probably not going to be relying heavily on meat. Oops. But I do like to keep around a large supply of female animals for cheese production. And it looks like that takes care of the horses, donkeys, and I sort of wish there was a way to sort by gender. Okay, so that will increase our meat supplies by quite a bit, and that will also save the plant supplies for alcohol production. So if those have not been produced yet. So if we go to the kitchen area, they should have a render fat order that will automatically pop up as either domesticated animals are butchered or animals that have been hunted are processed. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Next episode is, let's actually check the date, early spring. if the elves decide to, actually if they come in the spring, then they should be showing up sometime next episode. If not, it's going to be a couple more. Until then, it's going to be just continuing on. So, until then, stay safe. Make sure to keep your dwarves well fed.